Okay, welcome back everyone to another episode of Paths Uncovered, the podcast where we get to go through untraditional pathways into and within technology, which I think is getting just as interesting. So we're expanding our horizons a little bit, but today's guest is very much in that whole area of meandering her way into technology somewhere down the line. So I've got Julia Ghent with me today.
Hello, nice to be here.
Do you want to do a very quick intro to yourself before we kick in?
Yes, cool. So yeah, I'm Julia Ghent. I have been a technology graduate at ANZ for the past year now, and still doing the grad program for another 6 months. So very much enjoying it.
I love it. And I was thinking about this, and I was kind of, when I was trying to get Julia to come along to the podcast, was like, I don't actually know much about what you did before. And we were just talking about this. I'm like, I've known Julia now for a good amount of years and still couldn't tell you what she does, because these kind of things don't come up in conversation unless you kind of pick and poke at it.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, why would you want to know about, how I started uni or something? That's just a very random thing to bring up over drinks or something. So
exactly. So I'm like very glad we're doing this, because I'm like, I get to be nosy, but with like context, not just nosy. So this is good.
Yeah, you have a reason to be weird, so
yeah. Exactly. It's just what I want in life, right? Like, this is exactly why this podcast exists. I get to be weird with a reason. Okay, let's dive right in. We usually take it back to high school kind of times. Like, what was the original thoughts and career plans that you had for yourself back along those days?
Yeah, it's, like when I was in high school, there was a point where I wanted to get into arts, like to do fine art or something along those lines, because I grew up, so my entire family are all super artsy. I have all my sisters paint or do sculpture or something along those lines. So naturally I was thinking I'll go down that sort of path as well. Much to my parents' misfortune. They were like, there's no money in art, you can't do that. And then so I sort of panicked. I was nearing year 12 or VCE, and I panicked a little bit, and I was like, well, it'd be really hard to be a good artist and make money that way. So I decided during my VCE that I wasn't going to do any art subjects and just focus on maths and sciences, and like a language as well. And sort of focusing on that. But then I think I went a full 360, and I panicked and then just stopped trying whatsoever. So my year 12 experience was just me doing the absolute bare minimum, because I didn't know what I wanted to do in university. I was like, I don't want to commit to something and then hate it or whatever, just for the sake of committing to something from high school. And the school that I went to, which I'm assuming most schools are put a lot of pressure on students to do really well and get a good university degree, so it makes the school look really good. So there was all that pressure, and in the end I just sort of I didn't fail high school. I passed. I have a certificate to prove, but I pretty much just got by. And so there was no plan. There's a long way to say I had zero plan.
That's so interesting. I mean, I'm so glad you talked about that, because I feel like no one really says that kind of thing, right? In terms of no one's vulnerable enough to be like, I didn't do anything. But it's more I did that. I had that in year 11, my year 11. And I don't know whether it was, I've just always been very get it done, get it done, get it done. And I think I just kind of fell off the wagon a little bit in year 11, and I was like, I don't know how to get back on. I've missed so much. How do I catch up? What the hell have I done to myself? It was a weird time. But I went into a different school in year 12, and they started from scratch, essentially, the whole thing. And I was like, oh, thank God, I can kind of catch up. But it's really interesting to me that you're really into arts, and then I fully just didn't do them. I was like, how does one do that? But then I guess it makes sense in terms of losing a bit of interest in it.
Yeah, and I think, there's so many young kids now that, I just meet younger siblings or whatever, and they are in high school, or they're just finishing high school, and they're in that same, they're all in the same boat where they're panicking and they're like, this is like, my life's going to end if I don't get into a good school, or if I don't get the perfect ATAR or whatever. And I just say to them, just relax. You're 18. You don't, like, if you know what you want to do right now, something's probably wrong with you. Not really, but like, I just think you're not meant to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 18. And there are a few people that do, and I want to ask them all the questions. How are you so sure with your decision to go down this path? But it's I think it's unconventional. Just obviously, like, hearing about somebody who, I didn't fail high school, but I didn't do well, and I think I was embarrassed by that for a long time, and I was always sort of worried to run into people that I went to school with, because it's that question of, so what have you been doing with yourself since school? And you're just like, just traveling, and they're like, that's it, no degree, and I'm like, nope.
That
and it's just like, I don't know, it's like this weird fear, or I don't know what it is.
No, in fairness, that's actually the perfect segue into what did happen after high school. So I think you just mentioned traveling for a bit, but what was next? Like, what was happening right after the whole thing of where every single person, well, it happened to me, where like every single person I knew just went to college. Like, what else did you do? Like, as in, what was going through then?
Well, I guess, I probably had like a quarter life crisis really early on in my life. And immediately after high school, I kind of just... I didn't buy like a Porsche or anything like that, but I like just didn't, like, I just stayed in my room. I like, actually, like, a lot of the friends that I had in high school, I just completely ignored, and I think I needed to like reset and do my life again. So I just got some part-time jobs. My first job out of high school was working at Games World, which is sort of like, for those of you that don't know, it's pretty much like a board games store, or you can buy like figurines that you can paint. Like, you can buy those like specialty paints to paint like those tiny little figurines of like World of Warcraft characters or something. I don't know. So super, super nerdy stuff. Like, that's just next level nerd. And I was there for a while, and I was pretty much just saving. My first big thing that I did outside of school was travel for 7 months around Europe, and that was just, so I got a job at Games World, and I was just saving up as much as I can to do that. Which, can I just say, I don't know if this is like a really weird flex, but I spent 7 months in Europe, and I spent $4,000.
Like Australian
$4,000. Yeah. So I did.
I'm like thinking back to when I did Europe, and I did it for like a month and a half, and that was about maybe just over 2,000 euros. I'm like, that's essentially like close to 4. I'm like, what the hell? Like, fair, you deserve that flex.
I know. It was really cool. Like, I was like, I don't know, I think like most people, when they do backpacking around Europe or the Americas or anywhere, it's a lot of soul searching. It's a lot of just time to yourself and contemplation. And I actually I didn't spend a lot of money because I was doing a lot of couch surfing. I was doing some volunteering, and just, so I went there, and I thought I could just travel and holiday for 7 months. And then I think it was like 4 weeks in, and I was like, I have no purpose in life. I need to do something. I need to help somebody. I need to work or something to give me some purpose, as opposed to just like going to a museum every day. So yeah, I was able to do some like volunteering over there, and did a Camino, and that's just like the epitome of soul searching, I think. And that sort of sparked my passion to travel. So when I did that for 7 months, I came back for 6 months, would save as much as I can, and then I'd go away for a month or 2 months. And I sort of did that for, I think it was 3 or 4 years. And at that point, I sort of thought to myself, okay, I came back to Australia, and I was going to save up again to go for another big long Euro trip. This is after a couple of years, and I ended up getting a job at it was like the cinemas, Palace Cinemas, and they were just, it just totally ruined my plans to go traveling. I met amazing people. I met my current partner there, and I just ended up staying and not doing a massive trip again. So I'm still planning on doing one, but maybe soon. But yeah, didn't go away again for a long time.
That is so, oh my God, 3 years of traveling, like on and off traveling, that in and of itself sounds somewhat better than the 4 years I probably did at the same time dying in maths, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting how, like, even through that, like, the whole quarter life crisis sounds quite accurate when you're like, oh, what am I doing with my life? Like, what is my purpose? I feel like I do that, like, on a weekly basis at the moment. I'm just like, what am I doing? And I don't think it goes away, which is really sad.
Yeah, it's your quarter life crisis of the year. You get 4 of them every year, so. But it's true. It's like I feel like I get them all the time. It's like this moment of, am I doing the right thing? Should I just pack everything up and like move to a different country and change my name? And it always seems very tempting. But I wonder how many that's a lot of names that you have to keep track of. So probably not a good idea.
Is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this more hassle for myself? Possibly. Maybe I'll just leave this.
Yeah. It's just like someone schedules a 9 a.m. call and you're like, maybe I'll just leave the country. This is a good enough reason to leave. It's too early.
Yeah, someone was like, you're okay with the 9 a.m., right? I'm like, I feel like you're phrasing this in a way that I can't say no, but I'm 100% not okay with this. So what do we do here? Maybe just leave the country.
Yeah. Definitely a reasonable response.
Yeah. At this stage, that sounds right. But so you're at Palace, you're at the cinemas, and you kind of found a little groove where everything's just kind of fitting in a little bit at the sounds of it. So what is happening after this?
Yeah, so I met, like I was saying before, like I met a lot of amazing people, and I had moved out of home sort of properly for the first time during that time, and I met my partner who was just in the middle of his, I think it was second year or something of his computer science degree. And I think a lot of his friends were also, and a lot of the people that I worked with were just starting out at uni. They were a bit younger than me, and I think being in that environment sort of inspired me to finally do something in that, like to actually, study and challenge myself in that way. Yeah. So the next thing was, I was like, okay, I want to go to uni, and I wanted to do forensic science. I'm like massively into crime and just anything to do with crime. And in my mind, I was like, forensic science, that sounds like Law and Order SVU. I love Law and Order SVU. I'm totally going to do that. I'm going to be Olivia Benson, who's a detective. I don't know if she would have studied forensic science, but doesn't matter. Those details we can just ignore. But I went, I found like a forensic science degree course at Swinburne, and I was just like, whatever, I'm going to do it. So I did 1 year of it, or a year and a half of it, and I realized, I was sort of talking to a few people there, like my tutors and lecturers, and I sort of had like a knack for stats and maths, and forensic science was sort of divided into sort of 3 major sort of parts. It was like psychology, law, and then stats. So I really liked the law side of it. I was like, that was really interesting. But like I had sort of finished all of those like units, and then stats was something that I was just, I didn't think I would actually ever be interested in statistics because who is? But I was just, interested actually in it, and I was like naturally sort of, I guess, like fairly good at it. That I was like, you're naturally good at something, you're like, I really like that thing. So I was like, oh, I really like stats. And the rest of my, like, what was sort of in the horizon for me for my forensic degree was just psychology units. And I had absolutely no interest in psychology,
Yeah.
and which I thought I would actually. But anyway, so I was sort of did some hard thinking, and I was talking to a few people, and I ended up just deciding to change my degree into it was applied statistics, and I, you know, there was a few reasons. Like, one, I was obviously, like, I enjoyed it, and it was challenging in a really good way. But two, my lecturer was also saying it's actually a really good area to get into, just because, you know, it's in demand and it's something that, like, the world needs, and especially, like, women in tech, and, you know, forensic stats specifically is notoriously difficult to get into, because there's just not a lot of jobs. So I sort of dropped, even though I was interested in the forensic and the law side of stuff, I just dropped it all because I just don't, like, I didn't want to, at this point in my life, I'm very lazy, and I don't want to try too hard to get something. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on statistics, and that led me down the stats part of my life, I guess.
It's so interesting, especially because, I mean, I did stats as well, basically statistical degree. Yeah. I guarantee I was not a natural talent at stats, and there's a reason it's like a 4-year torturous time. So I'm like, fair play to you. I'm very happy for you to have been a natural talent, but oh my God, I cannot imagine saying that.
Well, even I remember there was because I obviously started my degree off doing something completely different, and I had made maybe like 3 friends in my entire university life, and all of them were like, is something wrong with you? You chose to go down the stats path? Like, everyone hates that, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know, I think it's one of those things where you always have those aha moments where you really struggle with like a problem or a concept, and then you just get to a point where it just sort of clicks. And I can't really explain. It's not like you're reading the same thing over and over again, or you're trying to sort of like solve this issue, and then like randomly it just clicks, and then you just understand it. And then from that day on, you're just a genius. Nah. But it's just like, I feel like there's a lot of those moments. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was definitely, I mean, I was one of 2, so there was about 10 people in my class, and there was one other woman in the class as well. So it was not a degree of choice for a lot of people at that particular university. Yeah. It wasn't a degree of choice. And actually, I was told that the year that I finished my degree was the last year that they were offering that course at that university, because there just weren't enough people interested in doing it, which is crazy.
Especially now when you think about it, when like statistics is kind of the hot thing to be doing, where everyone wants it, and you're like, oh, that's crazy to hear.
Yes, well, I mean, also contradictory to the conversations that I was having with my lecturers, who were saying this is a really good area to get into, you know, it's up and coming, blah blah blah, and then they also say, oh, but we're cancelling this course. So it was a bit weird. I actually, so sort of going on from, you know, when I finished my degree, so I did my undergraduate in applied statistics at Swinburne, and at this point I think it was sort of nearing the end of my last year, and it was like, so the end of the university year is like, what, October or something. I think it was like June, July, and I sort of realized I had not actually thought about what life is like after uni. I was like, I haven't applied for any jobs. I haven't done anything. Like everyone around me has already done like internships and they've gotten into grad programs and things, and I completely just botched that. I like forgot that was a thing that we did, like jobs, and so I was sort of having a bit of a crisis because I wasn't really confident in my stats ability. Because I hadn't done any internships or anything, I wasn't 100% sure with the knowledge and what I've learned at uni, like how does it actually apply in the real world? And will I be able to apply for a job in data science or analytics or something and be confident in my ability to do that? Because I've just been doing assignments and I have a teacher that's grading it and telling me if it's wrong or correct, you know?
Yeah.
And so I had a bit of a panic moment, and I got into, so I was like, what do students do when they don't know what they want to do after the uni? Do more uni. So I
was like, not gonna lie, fully waiting for another, I panicked and I just left the country to go traveling. Like I was like fully ready for that again.
Yeah, I changed my name to Julia. Yeah. I was born with a different name, actually. That would have been perfect. I'm sure I contemplated that. But
I mean,
no,
like,
a
very close follow-up to traveling or taking a gap year is just doing another degree. So this makes sense.
Yeah, and like, yeah, exactly. I just thought I'm good at studying. I'm good at doing these assignments and things. So I'll just continue on doing. And I was like, maybe I'll do another 2 or 3 years, and I'll figure it out during that time. It's like I've given myself an extra few years to figure out what I want to do. So during my last year, I was one of 2 students that was asked to do a PhD with this professor at my university, studying. It was something to do with like housing, like people in house, like commission housing in the area that we're studying in. And that was like another 4-year commitment on top of my undergraduate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a lot of soul searching, and I think I was like, that's too much of a commitment for me right now. So I declined that offer. And I thought, okay, I'll do my master's in maths. So I applied for a few different universities. I got a few different letters of offer, and then I ended up deciding Monash University is where I'll do my maths master's, because it just seemed like their syllabus just looked amazing. So I was like, I'll just go there. And it was actually at a friend. So I hadn't offered yet, but I was going to. I haven't offered. I didn't accept yet, and I was going to accept. I went to a friend's house party, and there was a lady there who I was, I don't know how. I must have just had like tears in my eyes or something. But we started talking about like life and things like that, and she pretty much said to me, "Don't do it. Don't do your master's unless." She said, it's a lot of time and money to focus and to do, like, it's a lot of effort to work towards something that you don't even know, like, what that thing is. And she said, a better way of actually, figuring out what you want to do, just sit down and say, okay, what is it that you like doing for hours and hours? And look for a job where that's, like, the thing that's like what you're sort of like passionate about. Does that job need you to have like your master's in mathematics? Yes or no? If the answer is no, don't do your master's in mathematics. And so I was like, that's really good advice. So I'm not going to do it. I'll wait for a year. And in this 1 year, if I can't figure it out and I absolutely have no idea like what I want to do, I won't accept it. I won't go into the year after. But if during that year I figure out what I want to do and it needs that master's degree, then I'll do it the year afterwards. I'm giving myself a year to think about my life.
Yeah.
And during that time, I ended up just applying for a job in a company called Accent Group. So they do they own like a few different like shoe brands and clothing brands in Australia and New Zealand, and I ended up just joining their like e-com space, working in logistics. And I made it sort of clear to them that my goal was to sort of do some like automation or data work, and which they were like, yep, happy for you to do that, because they didn't have any sort of department at the company that did anything with data, like analyzing or anything like that. I think they outsourced that. So yeah, I worked there for like a year and about a year and 2 months or so. Mm-hmm. And it was good. It was, like I was able to do some automation. I was able to do some work with data, and that was like about 4 or 5 times, and that was the highlight of my entire time there. It was the data work that I was doing besides that was just like crunching numbers pretty much, and it was sort of the same thing day in, day out, and it was not, exciting.
Yeah.
And so I realized during that time that I needed to get into a grad program, or I needed to get into an area where I can like learn and still sort of use the skills that I learned at uni. And I feel like the grad programs and internships are great because there's no expectation that you are amazing and that you have to do this amazing work. It's just like you're here to learn, basically, in a professional sense. So during my time at Accent Group, I hopped on the computer and just found 2 grad programs that I really wanted to do. One was at ANZ, and the other one was at car sales. And the car sales grad program was for engineering only. And the ANZ grad program was just a technology grad program, so it was a bit more broad. And I ended up going through all the rounds of interviews for both, but I only got the offer for ANZ, so I was like, okay, that's it. I'm glad I only got the one offer, because then the decision has been made for me. I'm not going to have to sit there like think, have I made the most terrible decision of my life? And then I got into the grad program during the time in Accent, and joined a year later.
I love that. Oh my God, do you know what? There is something to be said about placing yourself in an environment where the people around you are doing essentially what you want to be doing or will end up doing, because it'll happen that way. It's so interesting. Like, I mean, whether it was the friends who kind of got you back in towards uni, or the person at a random house party, which is like, it makes complete sense to me. I'm like, yep, you have enough the same kind of people around you, you'll end up having the same similar conversations. And you're like, of course they made that decision, helpful that in terms of don't do your masters.
Yes. And it's, like every time I experienced that obviously myself, where I just thought, when in doubt, just continue studying. And I have a few friends that did that as well. And I feel like it never really, like sometimes it really works well for somebody to keep studying, and it, like when they, don't know what they want to do really, and they're good at studying, or they enjoy studying. And sometimes it works well when they can get a job at the end, or they figure out what they want to do. But I find that it's more often than not, not more often than not, but if you don't know and you're just studying because that's something to do, I don't know what's a good way to say it. It's just, like, it's not a time waster because you are learning, but it's a lot of money and it's a lot of time, where you could sort of figure out what you want to do without having to spend all that money and time. And one of the best things that I did was actually just start working full time. And I sort of figured out really quickly like what it was that I did not want. And I think figuring out what you don't want obviously helps you figure out what you do want in your life. And for me, it was, I want, to be challenged daily, or I want to be in a position where, I don't know what the tomorrow is going to look like. It's not going to be the same, 9 a.m. you do this thing, 10 a.m. you do this thing, or whatever it is. There needs to be like a lot of flexibility in the work. And that I only figured out because I worked in that particular role. So it wasn't like I wasted a year or anything. That was really important, because I know I definitely don't want to do that ever again.
I mean, like, that's how, like, my whole, like, career kind of ended up being where it was, essentially because, I mean, yeah, like, I don't actually remember how I got into doing internships. I did one, don't get me wrong. Didn't do many more than that. But it wasn't a lot of people in our year did them. Like, it was a very few number that actually did. And I'm so thankful. I cannot, for the life of me, remember how I ended up doing that. Like, I obviously applied and did the interviews, but it wasn't many I went through. And I was like, it makes such a difference to be able to just call out everything you don't want to do. Like, I still could not tell you what I want to do with my life. Like, what I'm doing right now is great and I really enjoy it. But is that what I want to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally just going through one thing after another,
Yes.
cutting things off of, actually, that's a no. Now I've tried it. That's definitely a no. But yeah, like, it really just... And do you know what? It's like jumping out at the moment. Like, I love how you went through... when you were talking about in year 12 and stuff, like not wanting to commit to something you didn't want to do, and then doing like essentially a 180 on that, where it's like, well, I don't want to like commit to something for the sake of it, and let me just try. I don't know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Like, it's just so interesting how those things kind of shift around at the end of the day.
Yes. Oh, and you know, that mentality has definitely been the like it's been sort of the driver through my grad experience, because you know, I don't know, I think most grad roles sort of work the same way, where you get to rotate through different departments or different roles within the company. So you know, the ANZ grad program works, the tech grad program works, you do 3 different roles. They could be all engineering or all, you know, data science or something. But you have to do those roles like in a different department in the bank. And the idea is that, you know, each department or each team or whatever, wherever you go, has their own practices and their own, you know, ways of doing work. But you know, I always think back to my time at Accent, which like Accent Group as a company was great, and the people were lovely and everything. But the work, you know, I obviously established very quickly what I didn't want to do with my life. And like I was saying before, you know, I only got to that conclusion because I tried it. Yeah. And so I have I have a couple of buddies that I get paired up with, you know, as the grad, like with the grad program, and so, to sort of, I don't know, just teach them how to timesheet or something, I don't know, or like mentor them a little bit. And I always say, you know, just, it might seem really scary to try a role that you're not confident in or you don't know anything about, but like the only way really that you're going to figure out whether or not you like it or not is if you try it, you know. And I had that sort of mentality going into it. So my first rotation at the bank was in a data analytics role, because that obviously is closest to my degree, and just my surprise, I was not that interested in that role. It probably like sort of came down to many different reasons, not so much just the work itself, but like the area that I was in or the team that I was in. Like it could sort of be for a few reasons, but I was like, after that I was thinking, okay, so what's like a role or a job that I've like always wanted to try, but I've never sort of been that confident. I can't apply for that type of work because I've never really done it. And engineering, software engineering sort of came to mind. So my second role with the bank for 6 months was a back-end engineer for the transactions team in the app. And I went in there completely blind, basically. I had very little programming experience because of uni. All the programming experience I had at uni was just stat related. It was just like building graphs or analyzing trends or something. And this was, you know, working a lot with databases, but it was, just all back end, just building up, you know, like building connections between platforms and things like that. And I had to learn a new coding language, and I had to learn all about like just normal things that you learn at university, like GitHub and Git and Docker and things like that, which I just had no knowledge of. So it was super scary, but I loved it. You know, I was in that role only for 6 months, and then that time flew by. And so every time I talk to a grad and they're like, oh, I don't, and it's a lot of women as well who are like, I don't know that well enough, and I'm not confident in that, like in engineering in particular. And so I'm just not going to try it. And I always say, that's not for you to decide. You just try, and if you are passionate, you're going to be good at it. You know, just the first step is like, you know, figuring out if that's something that you like. And if it's something that you like, you'll make it work, you know. But yeah, so that's something I always like think about. Like I you know, I'm only going to know really if I like it, if I try it.
And like the most you're ever going to learn is, if you think about it, if you know something about things already, there's only so far more you can learn because you're already halfway there. If you're going in, like, I'm in awe of you trying to do the software engineering. I don't know if I would have been able to like get myself to commit to that. I'm like, I can kind of choose data, I'll just stick to data. I could see myself being in that trope. And it's and even within that, like, I mean, I definitely am someone who says that a lot, where I'm like, I like being uncomfortable in situations because I end up pushing myself a lot harder to actually get things done, or like get to a level where I can finally be comfortable. But the minute I am comfortable, I'm like, well, there's nothing else left now. Like, I'm uncomfy. That means I'm not really learning much more. And it's a weird time to be like, where I'm like fully at the stage of like, no, I like being uncomfortable now. And I'm like, I don't know how I got to this mentality, but I'm glad I did. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, no, fair play, honestly. Like, I definitely don't think I would have been able to get myself to do software engineering. Enough of like, I've seen enough of it, I know enough of it, and I'm like, that's where it stays for me.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, like you say, you know, get to that point of comfort. I think that, like, I've been doing this grad program, like I mentioned before, for a year and a year and a bit, and I've got 5 more months left. And I'm at that point where I'm like panicking a little bit because I'm back to that same situation I was when I finished high school, or when I finished my degree, or where I don't know what I want to do. And I have to obviously try and figure it out in the next few months. So that's my challenge now. I'm going to have to do another one of these in like 6 months time, and I'll tell you, exactly, did I figure it out? Yeah. Or you might not find me because I'll be in Spain somewhere. But it's that idea of working and being in a position where you're comfortable and you're, you know, certain of what you're doing with your life, is something I think, I'm assuming, because I feel like this, I'm assuming everyone else feels like this, but that's what everyone strives for, you know, that's like what you're working towards. And if you get there, how long can you stay there, you know, before you start thinking, okay, I'm too comfortable. Yeah. And then you have to go back to school, or just apply for a really random role, and hope for the best. But yeah, I hope I figure it out. I have no clue what I'm going to do.
I think you'll get it. I think it's going to be different and random, and it's going to be intriguing to see how it'll kind of play out. I think it's going to work. Either way, like, I feel like it's going to be the accent group bit, or whichever other random thing you've ended up doing, where it'll just be like, well, it actually worked itself out, it's fine.
Yeah. I think, you know, like, it's less on like what the role that I want to do is, and more on like the company I'd want to work for, or like the industry I want to be in. And for me, like, the one thing that I'm like definitely certain on is like working for a startup. Like, I think that would just be such a cool thing to do. Yeah. The startup specifically, I have no idea. It might not, maybe I'll have to start it. But it's, like, that's like, I know one day I'll work for a startup, but doing what? I have no idea. Just being a like good vibes person or something. I don't know.
Just the like, I mean, startups, right? Like, everyone wears all the hats. So, like, we'll be a person. That's about it. Like, I'll be a startup. Like, that'll be it.
Yeah.
You're doing everything under the roof. It'll be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a great way to figure out what you want to do, because you just end up doing everything.
Exactly. I thought that all the time.
You have like 5 roles.
Exactly. Like, I think when I started, I remember it was it was a small company back then. Like it was like, I don't know, I mean, the data team within it was about like 20 odd people across Australia. And I remember being told, it's like, look, we're trying to get the data practice going. So it'll kind of be like, it'll be a little bit all over the place. Like you might have to, I was like, that sounds ideal. Like sign me over right now. That is perfect. Like, I don't know what the hell I want. This is perfect. Like you tell me I'll have to do all the different things. Amazing. And I think it stuck with me a little bit where I'm like, I've consistently just gone from one to another, like to like smaller places, because I think it's a lot easier to get your hands into a lot of different things. Haven't done a startup yet, but like, hey, maybe we will just start one, maybe. We'll see where it goes. But it does kind of help where like, oh, I've kind of actually tried everything now. This is great.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think like, you know, for me, I mean, Accent Group was a company of I don't know, around 500 people. So not that big. And then I went over to ANZ where it's close to 60,000. And now it's like, okay, so I've done big corporate. I would love to stay at ANZ, obviously after the grad program and experience, you know, proper full-time work, not as a grad. But I would love to, the next thing after that, to be a tiny company startup where I'm like one of 10. That would just be, like just because it's the complete opposite of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I suppose, I'd have to sort of apply for a role at a startup. So I have to probably figure out what that role would be. But we'll see. Hopefully it's I figure it out. I mean, I have a feeling the rest of my life is going to be like this, where I'm just. I was
going to say, I'm like, there's just going to be multiple Julia Ghent episodes as we like constantly pivot through 100 different things.
Yeah, the next time you chat to me, I'll be like, so I'm a professional skydiver right now. Or like, I walk dogs for a living. It's my true passion. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think like just from my whole experience, like I just, not knowing is also kind of exciting. You know, it's just, like, I don't know what role I'm going to be in next year. And sometimes it's really terrifying because I need, you know, to survive somehow. I need to pay rent. But it's also it's exciting because, you know, the world's my oyster. The world's your oyster. You know, you can just do anything.
I love that.
But yeah.
Actually, sorry, before we do wrap up, like, which I'm like really obsessed with like just conversations in general rather than just like specific areas. I feel like we should do more of these on the podcast because it tends to become like this. Thank you for joining. But this is like interesting.
Yeah.
Talk to me about potato people and all, because this is the bits where I want to hear of like the other things outside of tech and everything that's happening, because this is a really, really cool fact. I think Julia runs her own cartoon strip account. Is that what they're called officially? Yep. I love the pages, but I just can't remember what they're officially called.
You sound like an 80-year-old lady like trying to connect to the youth. Comic strip page? Is that what the kids are calling it?
Okay. Great. I'm boomered myself. Amazing.
It's a comic book series. But yeah, it's just like it's they're sort of like their own standalone, like each comic book, each sort of like, oh god, now I feel like I'm old and I can't remember what they're called. It's each sort of comic is its own sort of fixed thing. It's not like a story that you follow. So, but yeah, no, I was saying my whole family do art. I also do art as well in my spare time. And actually, my first paycheck after I got my first full-time job at Accent, I went straight to Apple and bought myself an iPad Pro. And I wanted to, because of the Apple Pencil, and I downloaded an app called Procreate, and I just started drawing. And comic book, like Potato People World specifically, is a series that I started when I was like 8 years old. And there's four characters, or main characters, and it's Julie, which is me, Michael, which is my brother, Ellie, which is a friend that I'm really good friends with today, and Erwin, which is a friend that I had. So these are we were all best friends in primary school, and when I started drawing these comics, so I was drawing them religiously when I was little. I stopped for a really long time, and then I still have like all these books just full of like these little comics, and drawings of potatoes. And I think it was about 3 years ago, my sister said, we should really do something with these. So I took the story, like the idea of potato people, and I recreated and I started drawing comics again. So I have it's like a website, an Instagram and Facebook account for Potato People World, and yeah, I love drawing. I mean, I draw all the time anyway, but yeah, it's such a good, and it makes me laugh. Like, I actually look through the comics sometimes and I just laugh to myself. A lot of the time it's just like conversations I have with friends, and I think they're hilarious, so I just write them down and then I draw them later, and then that's the comic for the week. So, Katja, you've probably been in one of them.
Have I? Oh, I'm not. Yeah. Like, I do see most of them that come through, in fairness, and they do make me laugh. Like, I genuinely, like, there's definitely ones I've like screenshotted and sent back, being like, I love this. And like, it's also really true. Like, I mean, the amount of times I've been around like your place, and like, I'll just find you like doing some random arts and crafts that afternoon, and I'm like, great, like this just lines up to who I picture you as. But sorry, it just kind of popped up into my head because I'm like, I know we started the whole thing with you wanted to do art or something along the lines of that, and it took a completely different turn, but you still brought it back into it, and I love the fact that like it is a part of you, and like it just, yeah, really wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I completely forgot about Potato People World. I should have worn, we make merch, so I should have worn my Potato People t-shirt today.
I'm going to tag, I'll like put all the tags and stuff into it and stuff. Like, I mean, they're up for sale, and like there's loads of like stickers and everything that I've seen them. So like, no, it's great. I'm going to tag everything about it.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it's like one of the things that, I mentioned before. It's like, what's something that you can do for hours and hours? And for me, it's just, one of the things is just drawing, and it's these comics specifically. But yeah, I'm really into art, and it's just like I'm like laughing while I'm drawing. It just brings me a lot of joy, because they're really like silly looking. They're just like, it's pretty much just like an oval with like 2 dots for eyes and like 2 lines for their arms. Like it's very simple, but they're really cute. So
it really is. I love it. I mean, anyone listening, I honestly would recommend, like, go have a little laugh at yourself for yourself. It's brilliant. Look, I think we might wrap it up there for today. I am really, really excited about everything that's going to happen over the next year / the next career. We will definitely, I think it's kind of standing still, like a statement for kind of almost every episode we've done. Like, I've seen so many people having like, oh my god, a path updated. Like, it's definitely happened, and I'm starting to share those on the socials. So feel free to jump in and follow along the socials. I'm sure you'll see other paths uncovered that have been updated. But Julie, thank you so much for coming in and sharing all your thoughts and like being so open and vulnerable. I'm very thankful for that. Like, I think it makes really, really big difference of like people listening, and I'm like, actually I didn't do too well here either. This lines up, and she's doing great now, so this is perfect.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was really good. It was nice going down memory lane a little bit. Just, reminding myself how I got here. So it was good. Thank you.
No, it's perfect because it lines up a lot of stories in my head a bit. I'm like, I know you went to like did the Camino on like travel, like, but when did that happen? Like, a lot of it was like a little bit scattered. So this is like ideal for me to have a timeline of my own friends now. So this is great. If you've been listening up until now, thank you for listening. If you want to support the podcast a bit more, which would be appreciated, all the links are below wherever you're watching it, or on the website where you probably found it in the first place. I'll link up all of Julia's stuff as well, and Potato People. I can't talk anymore. I'm all talked out. So we'll wrap it up there. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. Keep safe, I guess, until then, and we'll chat soon.